here, right now, right here, right now, right here, right now, right here.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Cristo, Putting the World Right. And today I am joined. There is much excitement. I can barely contain myself. There are parts of me that can't be contained at the moment because I am joined by the comedian, the broadcaster and the television star. It's Steve N. Allen. How are you, Steve N. Allen?
Well, I'm very good after an intro like that. An intro that, let's be honest, sets up more than I can deliver. But still, I like it because it's the reason I agree to do this. The emotional boost of an intro like that.
It's. I should have undersold you, really, shouldn't
always,
I?
Yeah.
Because now you were right. You are going to be a disappointment now, aren't you? You're going to have to work twice as hard not to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to happen. I definitely will not follow through on that. But it was your promise. The fact that my ass can't cash that check is not. Asses don't cash checks. So it's...
The number of time your ass hasn't followed through, I won't lie, has been
the bigger problem.
Disappointment to us both.
It's when it does follow through is the problem. It's more likely to swipe a credit card than to cash a check. You know how bums work.
I do know how bums work, actually. I do know very well. It is one of my areas of expertise, actually. Thank you very much indeed. Yep. So coming up today, we're going to be talking about whether diversity and inclusion policies are responsible for the worst plane crash in America in 20 years. We're going to be talking about Rachel Reeves. That's another aviation story, and the runway that she has promised us, and her boost for growth, and whether some of the interviews she's been given are a little bit in the thick of it. And also, as always, we like to throw in a sprinkling of Harry and Meghan, mainly because when I give it a Harry and Meghan title, it gets more views because so many people like to talk about them. And so because we've got a comedian this week, we're going to be talking about whether it's okay to take the mickey out of them in front of their Netflix bosses, because that's what happened. Also, I should check X, which is Twitter, because I asked people what they want us to talk about. Hang on.
Is the hate stuff?
Someone wants to talk about the Sadiq Khan C40 cities thing, which is like an environmental thing.
Yeah.
And someone else has asked whether you're the other Steve Allen.
I don't think I am. I mean,
you're not.
If we talked about when the sun got me confused for the other Steve Allen, have I ever chatted through that story with you? Do I have time to quickly do it now?
Yes, you go ahead.
So when the other Steve Allen said something very mean about one of Gordon Ramsay's kids, called a chubby little thing, I think is when she was on Dancing on Ice, and the Sun ran a story of that and all the complaints associated with it with my picture, and it was terrifying on many levels. So I had a full weekend of people basically in the comment section, and it was my fault for refreshing the comments all the time, saying things like, he shouldn't talk about how fat she is, look at the state of him. And I'm just reading it going, I didn't. What? So one person just said that I look like a thumb. Back off. I didn't say anything about her. But the most insulting thing is someone at the Sun would have Googled, or wherever they did their image search, they would have looked for like 67-year-old presenter Stephen Allen, saw my face and I'm like, yeah, that works.
That's
harsh.
Yeah, that is harsh. I mean, in fairness, I have mixed feelings about Steve Allen. Have I told you my Steve Allen stories?
No, I've heard a rumor of there being a bit of a falling out, but
yeah, we used to be quite good friends. Well, I thought we were quite good friends. I used to work with him. I've told this story before, and I don't wish him any ill will. I wish him well, and I hope he finds whatever happiness it was he was looking for. But we were sort of buddies when we worked together. And we used to take the mickey out of each other quite a lot on each other's shows, but it was all done in jest and in love. And I would be quite often the butt of the joke.
But you're an expert.
I didn't mind that. I don't mind being the butt of the joke if it's funny. I really don't mind. So we used to have to do a handover because I'd have the show before his. And so, I'd set him up for it. I'd be like, oh, I'm off to the gym now because I'm healthy eating. And he'd be like, well, God, that's not working. Look at the state of you. You've never been fatter. All of this sort of stuff. Or when I had a hair transplant, he used to say that I had shredded wheat on my head. That's what it looked like. Honestly, it was funny. I didn't care. And so I would deliberately set myself up for him to take the mickey out of me. And I'd do the same back to him. I'd say, when am I in your will? Because surely you're going to die soon. All this stuff. Then one day on my show, I took the mickey out of him when I had found out that he'd taken a couple of young male producers up the Shard.
Oh, we can guess part of the rest, yeah.
Because he had actually taken them up the Shard. They'd gone for lunch or dinner in the Shard. So I was like, I have to say, what an amazing man to have taken those men up the Shard, and what lovely, and I got a lot of mileage out of what was essentially quite a childish, silly joke. And he went mad. He was absolutely furious. And he went to the bosses, and I sent him a message. I found out he was furious. And so I sent him a message, and I said to him, look, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that I'd upset you, but maybe we need to stop taking the mickey out of each other a bit then, because perhaps I've crossed a line, and if I have, I'm really, really sorry. He was not having a word of it. He never spoke to me again.
Really?
Never spoke to me again. And then he then went to the bosses and was like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. Tried to obviously get me in as much trouble as possible for doing that. And then I left the station in question, and he then spent every single show practically after that, not mentioning me by name, but slagging off, Greek people. I used to suffer really badly from gout. He said that someone he knew was making up that they had gout. The fat producer, he used to call me, because I went on to be a producer at ITV, and there was a bit of a scandal there. And he just, one time within a week, he spoke about me about literally, we logged it, and it was about 90 times he mentioned me in a week. So that's why it sort of went sour. And it's a real shame, because I actually adored the man, but he was like, I think he was always very, it was always a bit on a knife edge. And if you fell out, if you went out of favour, that's it. Never will you return.
Do you think that maybe when you were saying took these men up the Shard, he thought you meant bottom? I think that might be it. So what upset him?
What, you mean the bottom floor of the Shard? Is that what you're referring to? Well, I mean, obviously I didn't mean that, because he did take them up the Shard. There'd be photos of them all up the Shard. But of course it was like just silly innuendo. I don't know whether whatever Steve wants to do and doesn't do and whatever. I wish him well. I hope he's all right. He's actually at times can be the most lovely, kind man. But there was sort of,
at times,
I experienced a bit of a vicious streak in him, that's all. And it's a real shame, because I actually really loved him. I really did. But there we go.
Well, I'm not him, so don't worry. I've never taken anyone up the Shard.
Worse luck, hey? not despite us trying, hey? Nice to have you. Oh, you want to talk about dry January as well, don't you?
Yes, well, just to bemoan it. I mean, we're at the end of it, but there was a thing in the newspaper yesterday that said 2/3 of people quit after 2 weeks. Why were we still prattling on about it then? Everyone seems to hate January for no good reason. But my birthday's in January. I'm a defender of January. I hate the fact that we call it the most depressing month. And there's some survey that comes out, or some rubbish about like the second Monday in January is Blue Monday, the most depressing day of the year. It's some rubbish that's been paid for by a mattress company. Or, it's one of those news stories. And we all jump on it because there's no news in January. And don't live your life having a 12th of it that you have written off as a miserable time. It's no more miserable than December, but December hides behind Christmas. But I just think
your relentless positivity makes me sick.
But I just think people who do dry January, it's stupid. It's the worst month. If you like drinking, don't give it up during January. That's why you think January's bad. And everyone's like, oh, no, we're going to get into February and there's going to be celebrations. No, there's not. There's about 3 people left who are doing it. Everyone else has come off the wagon successfully. But it just, I hate this whole, I don't know, it's the same thing that makes people tweet like wine o'clock memes. Have a drink, don't have a drink, shut up about it. There's your 3 options.
Well, actually, I am friends with the PR girl. I've not seen her for years, who invented that story about Blue Monday.
Oh, really? It's what a lot of rubbish.
And I can't remember what she was promoting. I can't remember if it was a show. I think because she works in television PR.
Right.
But yeah, it was something to do with that. And now every year it goes, this story comes back up. I don't know whether this is true as well, but there's also, or whether it was invented by a law firm that needed PR, but there's also Divorce Monday, isn't there?
Yeah.
Where it's the first Monday after Christmas. Everyone decides they want to get a divorce because they all want to wait until after Christmas. But I agree with you, actually, because I have a very addictive personality. I've stuffed myself. I've starved myself. I've done, endless drugs in my life in the past, or not done anything. I've, all of these sorts of things, feast or famine, all of those extremes I've lived by, and I think that the extremes of behavior are the root of all evil. And if you say to yourself, I am not going to have a drink, you will want a drink more than anything. Or what will happen is you won't have a drink in January, then by February you're literally an alcoholic by Valentine's Day. So you are, because you just like you're going for it. It's like those people that also say, like, this year I've been trying to get a bit healthy lately. I've been sort of losing a bit of weight, and I worked out all over Christmas. Why? Because otherwise I know what I'd have done. I'm going to go on a diet on the 1st of January. Well, I'd have just stuffed myself till the 1st of January. And so those extremes are really, really bad. I'm really against them. You're quite right. If you want to cut down a little bit, if you want to say I'm going to be more conscious about my drinking for January, perfect. But if you're going to say I'm not drinking, then you're setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah. And also, I suppose another reason why I look down on it is I barely drink these days, right? In my 20s, did loads of it, and then just cut back and just got different priorities. So as someone who, I don't know, last year I maybe had like 2 drinks. If I'm at some do and we're doing a toast, I'm not going to refuse alcohol, but I just don't have the urge to do much alcohol these days. So when someone says, I've not had a drink for 2 weeks, big whoop, that attitude's your problem, right? If you're counting the day, if you're counting the hours that you've been between drinks, you've got the same problem as if you were drinking constantly. Whereas if you just take it or leave it, then don't make a big deal out of it. Dry January, it's utterly pointless. I mean, it's different.
How old are you now?
Well, how very dare you, sir? Next you'll be asking my weight. No, I'm 48. Not too long ago did I flip. Just a few.
No, I was just saying that, I used to drink a lot in my 20s. You sort of missed out your 30s. So I thought you were sort of trying to imply there that you were like 32 or something. That's all. A couple of years ago in my 20s, I didn't drink at all. I used to drink loads, and now I don't drink anything.
Yes, I'll have to try and pick a drink that only came out like 7 years ago. Like I used to drink loads of, hooch. No, that dates me in the 90s, didn't it?
Oh, hooch. Mad Dog 2020. Do you remember that?
I had some great nights on it, I think. Apparently, people have told me I had some great times. I don't remember a bit of it.
Oh, God, it used to be green. It used to come in a lime, I think it was lime and kiwi, and you used to get an orange one. And I remember you could buy them in the pub for like £2, and you get a little straw in it. But also you could buy a big bottle of it from the off license, and it used to get you wasted.
Yeah.
And that would be about £4. Or like you said, hooch. That was really the decade of the Alco Pop, wasn't it?
Yeah, I once on Mad Dog 2020, I used to have the orange one because, health. I had a couple of those one night and started a fight with myself in a mirror in a nightclub.
Oh, you're full of that is rubbish. I don't believe you.
So I don't remember all the details myself, but my mates told me, and I would have been like 18 or 19 at the time. And this is the worst bit. Apparently, I spotted some guy over there, some ugly beep, who was staring at me all the time. I mean, I don't even walk away from that story as the winner. I spotted this ugly guy in a mirror. And I went over and I tried to throw a punch, but I just fell over. And then the bouncers just like picked me up and shut me out. So I think I won.
God. Oh, dear God. See, then I discovered substances, you see, party drugs.
Right.
And so I sort of stopped drinking, and I used to go out clubbing all the time. And this is, again, the 90s and early noughties, and used to go to all the big clubs in London, like Bagley's and Leisure Lounge and all of these clubs. And let's just say that you'd sort of go out on a Friday and come back sometime on a Sunday afternoon,
right,
which now just sends chills down my spine. It is just disgusting.
I'm now at an age where Leisureland sounds like a shop if I'm looking for furniture. Going off to a retail park.
Yeah, come and get our 0% offers at Leisure Lounge.
Must end this weekend. I'm there.
Yes, because it's always ending this weekend. Have you noticed now they have to write in those adverts as well? Previously, it used to cost $7.99 between the 24th of the 12th and the 26th of the 12th. Yeah. 2 days, it was a higher price.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's just in one shop somewhere in the Outer Hebrides that they open just so they can increase the price, drop the price. That's how they do it.
Will the DFS sale ever end?
No, I mean,
what will happen first?
I think
the end of the world or the end of the DFS sale?
Yeah, like Brian Cox says, we've got a few billion years left before the heat death of the universe, and right at the end of that, it'll be the DFS sale still going on.
It will be. It is such a bizarre thing, though, with It's like, how has sofas become the new thing for urgency as well? Will be delivered by Christmas. The sale will end. You won't get this sofa. Is there a shortage of sofas? Is there a world shortage of them?
Most people who are buying a new sofa already have one, don't they? Yeah, you're right. It's not like I don't know what we're going to do for 3 weeks. I guess we'll just have to stand. No, you're right. There's never been an urgency.
But there's never been any other. We don't advertise food like that. We don't advertise anything else like that. Or like this kitchen. You're never going to get a kitchen again if you don't get this. Like, look at this beautiful Hovis bread, but it's going to run out. But with sofas, it's like must end.
Yeah,
this is going to. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get a sofa. You won't be sitting. Look at that.
It's because we've ruined ourselves with Prime delivery, haven't we? When I was growing up, allowed 28 days for delivery. That used to be the standard if you ordered anything postally. These days, if you order it and it doesn't arrive the next day, you are furious. How have we not exploited a team of people who have to wee in bottles to get my pointless order to me by this time tomorrow or else?
But that's capitalism. See, I think the sign of a healthy capitalist economy is how many bottles of urine end up in a bin.
Yeah, our productivity will have increased when the size of the bottle. None of this small little 330ml thing. If you're not weighing in a 3-litre one, you should be working harder.
Well, but I see them a lot in London on the side of the road. Do you ever see pee bottles on the side of the road in London?
No, I don't know. We hang out in very different areas, so I don't think I've seen any.
It was a club I went to. They were everywhere. But there are quite a lot of pee bottles around in London because I think a lot of taxi drivers as well. Well, Did you see that there was a sign up as well for people? I don't know if it was for Uber drivers, but there was a sign up saying, please don't defecate in this area, because some get out the car and decide, well, actually, I need to go. And when you got to go, you got to go.
Well, I've never had to go that much. I've never had to Paula Radcliffe myself in the middle of an activity. So
no, I mean, Uber's bad sometimes, but I've never needed to defecate. I mean, how many stars would that get?
Oh, yeah, that'd ruin your rating for a while, wouldn't it?
It would, wouldn't it? Defecating all over a Prius. Some people would say that's the best thing for a Prius. Anyway, you probably drive a Prius, don't you?
No, but I do have a hybrid. Yes.
Oh, I knew you would. I knew you'd have a hybrid. Right. I knew anyone I knew that you would have a hybrid.
To give you the full ammunition in case you want to absolutely counter me, I've got a hybrid as one of my 2 cars. So that's not like I'm saving the planet with one of my I don't need to have 2 cars.
What hybrid do you have?
It's just the CHR, so it's just bigger than it's because we've got 2 kids now. And it's a
what is it? What's a CHR?
It's a Toyota, but it's bigger than the Yaris, smaller than the RAV4 or whatever they do.
So is it a zooped up Yaris? Is it like the big Yaris with big wheels that looks like a bigger Yaris, or is it actually? Oh, I know. Is it the one that's been over designed? The Toyota that looks like it's got lots of angles and lots of weird things around it.
It's got like the cheekbones of a model. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. It's doing the blue steel at me whenever I try and park it. Yeah, but yeah, we just needed more space with the 2 kids. But before then. I used to have this Igo, which was worth about £3.50, and I've hit it into so many walls and it's dented and whatever. But it's got 0 road tax, so I just didn't give it up. When we bought a new car, I was like, well, why would I cash this in for a voucher?
Oh, so you've still got the. So you're very much a Toyota lover then.
Do you know they've never broken down on me? That's all it ever takes for me to go for. I don't care about cars, but I need the ability to drive somewhere and know I'll get there.
Why don't you care about cars? Like, why am I more masculine than you when it comes to cars? I love cars
because you're very butch, and everyone watching can see that and sense that.
They can see exactly how butch I am, and that is just so typical as well. Why didn't you buy British?
Are they not British? No, because I needed something that never breaks down. I would not have the ability to repair it, and that was true with normal cars. But now I looked under the bonnet for the first time of the hybrid thing. There's like 3 laptops in there. There's absolutely no way you could fix anything. It's all mod cons, and there's probably a flux capacitor. So there's no chance of fixing anything. So you just want something that runs. That's unless you've gotten
yourself a good old Austin Allegro.
Right. And how often would I be stood at the side of a motorway with a pee bottle in hand, trying to wait for service?
Yeah, some people would suggest that was the best thing for the Austin Allegro. I'm obsessed with the British car industry. And do you know what? Over Christmas, when I was covering on Talk, this is what a geek I am. I interviewed Peter Egan. Do you know who Peter Egan is?
No.
He's the actor. He was in Ever Decreasing Circles.
Oh, yes.
He was in Afterlife with Ricky Gervais. He does a lot of animal rights. And so he was on talking about animals over Christmas and animal cruelty going up and this terrible story. And so he came on because he talked a lot about that. But at the end of the interview, I was like, look, it's really bad about all of this animal stuff you were talking about. But can we talk about the Austin Montego training film that you did for Austin Rover in 1984? With Robert Lindsay. The two of them are in if you can find it on YouTube. I'm obsessed with watching old Austin Rover training videos because I am so sad. And the two of them did a training video for the Austin Montego, which has been properly produced. I mean, they're probably, it's like a proper drama, you know? And he was quite surprised to find that someone had actually watched the thing.
Well, with a cast like that, who wouldn't? That's yeah.
Robert, I mean, these are award-winning actors that were in this. That's why the British motor industry went down the plug hole, because we were paying actors.
It was the repeat fees that did them. That's the problem.
Yeah. And he said it was the worst job he ever had because he had to learn all of the features of the Austin Montego, on which I'm about to test you, Steve.
Oh, no. All three features.
Yeah. Don't you slag off the Austin Montego. Actually, it was a very, very good stretched version of the Maestro platform, which was brought in as a replacement for the Morris Ital. Thank you very much indeed.
Anyway. I was just about to say that, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about another transport story, but I'm afraid not one that is particularly joyous. It is, of course, this horrific plane crash, the collision of a helicopter and a plane coming into land at Washington, that happened a few days ago. Now, it's an absolutely dreadful story. We don't really know what happened. There's a lot of speculation at the moment about the fact that it was a military helicopter. About 67 people, I think, have unfortunately died in the tragedy. They both came down in the Potomac River. But a lot of speculation is saying, look, that the helicopter was told by air traffic control to look out for a plane. Potentially, they might have confused what plane they were looking out for. This is all speculation at the moment, but unfortunately, they collided with a plane that was coming into land that had an American Airlines plane that had a runway change at the last minute. So obviously, massive tragedy, a lot of people speculating as to what's gone on, a lot of families that are bereaved. But Donald Trump in the press conference, which is, I can't lie, I do find it a bit odd. He claimed that the 67 people have died as a result of diversity and inclusion policies. Yeah. He said that the hiring of air traffic controllers and all of those sorts of things had become lax. And he said we must only have the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system, and essentially said it was DEI policies that have created this problem. What do you think of that? Is that absolutely barking mad, or might he have a point?
Well, here's the problem. It's not absolutely barking mad. The secret to a good lie, I think this might be like one of those Machiavellian things. The secret to a good lie is having a kernel of truth in it. So we've got no idea whether this particular crash has anything to do with DEI. But it is true that a report was made a while ago that said that declared that the military in the US was far too white, or the Air Force was far too white. So it doesn't matter what you say. You can definitely point to that and it'll seem like you're backing it up. But he said that before they'd found the black boxes. They had no, at the time he was making a point about air traffic control, but loads of people on X are trying to skew it back around to the truth again by saying, well, the pilot of the helicopter was swap gender or whatever the thing. But that wasn't what he was saying. He was talking about intelligence. Other people online are trying to say, oh no, he was saying they didn't have the correct staffing because people have been turned away. No, he used the phrase, it has to be of superior intelligence, and we didn't have that.
Yeah, he said, just to tell you exactly what he said, because I've got the quote here, he talked about the FAA, the Federal Aviation Authority's disability recruitment program, and he slammed it, saying people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities were being employed. and serving as air traffic controllers. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, substantially shortened, because of the stress where you have many, many planes coming into one target. You need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. And he then said that the FAA website stated that persons with conditions such as hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism were all qualified for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country. Yeah.
I mean,
that's
look, fair
bizarre.
enough. If they do an investigation in this, and I don't think this will be the outcome, but if it is, I'll hold my hands up and say I'm wrong. I don't think that even with all of those recruitment policies put in place, anyone would have thought, that person from boxing, Helena, let's put her in charge. Do you know what I mean? If you've literally got no limbs, no ability,
I don't think she'd work as a pilot somehow.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? That's why that's not going to be the outcome of this. There's not going to be someone who can't see, can't hear, can't communicate, who's just sat in a chair and everyone else is stood around it going, it's not going to go well, but what we can do is DEI. So there's no way that...
I think he was absolutely wrong
to
choose that moment. He what's so frustrating is that actually I think that DEI has morphed into something that it wasn't ever intended to be. And the good intention around DEI, which was to give people an equality of opportunity, has now become about trying to create an equality of outcome, which means that standards have to fall or you have positive discrimination. And I think that those are really valid debates to be had, and there is nuance around those debates, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think you do need to have nuance, because in some industries, DEI is necessary. For instance, you would need it in areas of the medical industry, for instance, because otherwise you would need to know, you would need to have people who are specially trained in different races and different genders and all of those sorts of things. What diseases affect men, what diseases affect women, all of those sorts of things. So there is a place for it in certain areas in order for people to get better care. And where I think that it's gone wrong is positive discrimination and people being put into roles based on a decision to select them based on their characteristic rather than whether they're best for the job.
Yeah.
But now's not the time to make that point. And what the problem is now, that I think if it turns out it's nothing to do with DEI, he's actually invalidated what is a fair point he might have previously made about DEI. He's got to actually he's going to undermine his own argument.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's a time and a place for the argument about DEI. Look, it can't be the long-term solution. Surely the long-term solution at best should just be name-blind hiring, because that way you get rid of any chance of there being any prejudice. You are just taking the best people. Most things should just be best person for the job gets the job. And also there's the other problem with DEI, that as soon as you start showing off that that's part of your policy, you are setting whoever gets the job up for a fall. It doesn't matter how good they are, you've given other people the ability to say, you only got that job because you are whichever protected characteristics being hired.
Which actually also undermines those people who might be good enough for the job that happen to come from a particular minority, because they might have just got the job on merit but have nothing to, but then it will be presumed that they didn't. So it sort of fails on all fronts. Where it needs to happen is at grassroots. You need to give everyone the equality of opportunity, and you need to make sure that if there are communities, that could be, by the way, white working class boys, which are ones that are doing dreadfully in school at the moment, you need to make sure that they are being catered for when it comes to getting a decent education and having the opportunities to go for these jobs and being qualified enough for them. You don't solve it at the end of the process. You solve it at the start of the process.
Yeah.
And so I think it's bizarre that he's chosen this moment to go for that, because unless he knows something we don't, I think he's going to end up regretting doing it. Well, he won't end up regretting it because he doesn't regret much, Donald Trump. But I think that he might end up invalidating his own argument.
Here's why I think he's done it, though. It's certainly a distraction, isn't it? Now everyone is talking about the merits for and against DEI instead of talking about other failings that could have happened. Pete Buttigieg, who used to be in charge of transport under the Biden administration, said actually what had happened was because Trump's tried to blame the Biden administration for all the DEI. And Pete Buttigieg says, actually, they managed to get near misses down. There were 0 collisions of this nature through their entire thing. And then Trump comes in, removes personnel who, I think the phrase was something like key to keeping the skies safe. And then this happens a few days later. Now, again, I also don't know whether there's any truth to that because we don't have any of the information about the cause of this. But it's interesting that no one's talking about any accusations that could be leveled against Trump because we had the little grenade of DEI thrown in. And now we can all have that discussion rather than the actual any discussion about air safety.
Yeah, and maybe that's the reason why Trump did this perfect diversionary tactic. And that's not to say he doesn't have a grain of a point about DEI, but I think it's really bizarre. And I think it's really sad that it's sort of descended into this political slanging match between like Pete Buttigieg and Donald Trump and various others, because actually at the moment it should just be about, look, we're really sorry, we're going to find out what happened. And that's all that probably should be said. But the other thing is, and on that, I kind of always admire Donald Trump's kahunas on this. He is also doing what he was elected to do. And the reason he's elected is because people like the fact that he's a loose cannon and will just say whatever he wants to say. So the people who love him aren't going to not love him for saying this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I take that's exactly right. Yeah, I take your point on that. Still, I agree with you that this is not the time or the place for this particular argument. An argument that needs to be had. As I said before, the key to a good lie is having that grain of truth so you can keep pointing back to it and then it feels like you can win the argument.
Yeah. Oh, God, I this story absolutely obsesses me. I know it sounds really morbid and macabre, and I have absolute sympathy at the moment for the victims, but I just find aviation fascinating. I find, what creates... I've been watching all the press conferences and all of this stuff because I find the circumstances that create, particularly an aviation accident, are always so fascinating because actually what this will be, it will always be this. It will not be one thing. It might be that they had a shortage of staff in the air traffic controlling. It might be that the training policies were compromised because of DEI or some other reason, financial constraints, whatever else. It might be that the helicopter team had a particular piece of software not working. It might mean that also they looked then visually and saw the wrong aeroplane. It might be that the aeroplane changing the runway. It will be 5 things that will have created this. It's never one.
But what we know it won't be is the fact that they hired someone with dwarfism and the controls are up there. That won't be it. That's what Trump's trying to go for, isn't it? Like, just I can't reach that, and that's what
he couldn't reach the autopilot. It's so silly, Donald. Come on, Donald.
You're being a bit silly. I know what you mean about the obsession, and every time we talk about this, someone will say flying is the safest way to travel, and I bought that for ages because it's in Superman 1 from the 70s, right? He gets on the plane. Remember, folks, flying is the best way to travel. And I was reading a story about it after a recent crash, and it's the safest way to travel per mile. And that started to dig into my head like, well, of course it would be per mile because you travel thousands per flight. The amount of time it would take you to walk that long, of course you'll get into some sort of walking-based accident. But if it was time spent traveling, I don't know if flying would be the safest.
I still think it is incredibly safe because also they look at the number of flights taken per day. So I don't think it's just about you and your individual life. It's also about how many people around the world are transported each day and how many accidents happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to get the stats, but accidents per minute rather than accidents per mile, because that's more important to me. I'm not counting how far I've traveled. It's how long you're on the plane. That's the thing I can control.
Do you know what I've started doing? It's terrible, and I've got to stop because I went to a party last weekend, and it was a couple. Say that again.
Down at P Bottles, where you normally party.
Yeah, down at P Bottles, the club. Yeah, it was a lovely party, and there was a couple there, and it was a couple that I saw over Christmas as well, and one of them is a pilot. He's very, very dashing, and he's always like, "Oh, I'm not drinking because I'm on call," and all of these things.
So he's not British Airways. Good.
He's not British Airways. No, he isn't British Airways. And why you saying British Airways pilots drink?
That was the story a couple of years ago. Do you remember?
But yeah, they don't. I don't think they do if they're on call now. Anyway, but maybe anyway. And every time I see him, I'm like, oh my God, let me tell you about my favourite plane crash. And I've done it twice. Like when he came over on Christmas Day because he's friends of this couple and they're friends of my partner's cousin. And all I realised at the end of it, all I did was literally sit there and tell him about my favourite plane crashes and the ones that I find so interesting. And then when I saw him at this party last weekend, I said, "Oh, did you look up the United Airlines plane crash from 1988 that I told you about, 1989, Sioux City, Iowa?" And he was, "Oh, I haven't had a chance yet." I said, "Don't worry, we'll sit down now and go through Wikipedia about it." And I don't think he wants to talk about it, actually.
No, that's what he does for a living. He doesn't want to be put off his own job, does he?
Yes, but it is fascinating. Are you a nervous flyer?
No, I am very much. I've managed to nail the thing that all of the self-help people tell you: don't stress the uncontrollables. If I'm on a plane, I'm not flying it. There's absolutely no point being nervous about whether we're going to fly or crash.
Oh, you're absolutely insane. There are many, many variables.
What? No, not that
many variables.
No,
Yes, there are. There are absolutely variables that you control. Firstly, during takeoff, you can sit on your hands. That's what the stewards and the stewardesses do, so that they don't sort of lurch forward and break their hands if there is an accident. Secondly, the moment you sit down on the aeroplane, what you do is you count the rows. You count the rows and you imagine that the cabin has filled full of smoke after a fiery crash, and that you have to climb over each set of seats in order to get to the exit. So that is the second thing I do. I always count. I look behind and I say, right, is it going to be behind me? Is it going to be in front of me? Who is going to be an obstacle here? That lady over there in 23E, I'm going to have to push her out the way. All of those things in order to get to the exit, because actually you are very much more likely to survive the plane going down, but actually getting out is the problem. Thirdly, you always listen to the in-flight safety demonstration, because that gives you muscle memory. That's the reason why they ask you to listen to that, because the number of times that there have been plane crashes, right, and then people sit there and they don't know what to do. They've no idea what to do. Or the other thing, the worst one, is that they'll be in a fiery plane wreck on the runway, and then they'll try and press their safety belt thing because they think they're in a car. So that's why you need to have the muscle memory of remembering that you've got to open it and do all of that. So those are three things I can give you there that will possibly save your life.
I've worked out what to get you for Christmas. It's one of those dummy belt things that they keep. When they do the demonstration with the inflatable one that won't inflate and the dummy belt. You should get one of those. You can just practice, get the real muscle memory. Blindfold yourself. Do a proper, Apocalypse Now.
Oh, I close my eyes and imagine myself climbing over the row, so I've got the muscle memory, so that I remember to do it. Because there have been so many crashes where people just sit there, or they run the wrong way. They've got so much disorientation, they get out of their seat and they run towards the fire. That happened in the 1985 British Air Tours crash on the Manchester runway. People ran the wrong way into the fiery wreck.
Before you take off, have you worked out who you're going to eat first? I imagine you got your first 3 weeks.
Many times I look around the cabin imagining who I'm going to eat. Yes.
It's the pilot, isn't it?
It depends on how many stripes he's got, frankly. Okay. So anyway, that was a bizarre story from Donald Trump. And obviously it's a really, really awful, tragic, terrible story. But to another aviation story now, one that would potentially be a little bit brighter, and that is the idea of a third runway at Heathrow. Now, Steve and Alan, do you know how long we've been talking about a third runway at Heathrow?
I'd love to know when it originally started. Ever since I've started paying attention to news, it's been something that's been mentioned. So I guess it goes back, pre-80s?
1948.
No way. Brilliant.
Yep. We have been talking about a third runway at Heathrow now for... many, many years. Let me just do the maths. Well, what is that? 80 years.
Yeah.
Nearly. I mean, by the time it's built, we will have nearly been talking about it, if it ever gets built, for 100 years nearly. That's how long. The Chinese, they build a runway in a year. The Chinese build an airport in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Other countries just do it. They get the bulldozers in and do it. Here, we are talking about it once again, and then there'll be judicial reviews, and then all of the eco-loonies will end up, digging themselves in tunnels, and we'll end up in a situation where that thing will never be built.
Yeah, probably true. At least I like the level of promise we're getting this time, because it does feel a bit, it's different. It's not like, well, we'll do a consultation and the mood, the vibes is very much, we are going to get this done. Now, there's no way to build an airport in the UK within one parliamentary term. So you're right, by the time someone else comes in, when that's the way it's looking, that'll
cancelled.
It'll get nixed. Of course it will. But at least you've got this attitude of like, no, this is a nation that's going to do some building. Everyone wants like 3% year-on-year growth. And if you want that, you have to have some development. Everything that is concrete now at some stage was a field. So, do the maths, plot the graph. You're going to need to build some more things. And obviously, if you live anywhere near Heathrow, you won't be quite in favour of it. If you live near the other airports, you won't like it. I live under the flight path of Luton, and I've said, that one seems big enough. I don't know why anyone would leave that one where it is, but the rest of them I'm very much in favour of. But yeah, you've got to
Luton is a grim airport. Luton is a horrible airport.
Worst airport if they hadn't have built Stansted.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Luton might be worse.
But at least
Luton used to stop you being able to drive to Luton before they had a train station.
Yes. Oh, that's crazy. And charging you like 20 quid for a drop off. You're kidding me. But still, at least Luton Airport is near the plains, whereas Stansted Airport, it's nowhere near the flipping plains. You have to get on a coach for half an hour. You get a free trip out of it, I suppose, but it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's true. But also, that's because we don't have the room or the capacity. Do you know the best idea that Boris Johnson ever had? And of course, it would be one that was just never, ever implemented, was Boris Island.
Boris Island, yeah.
Just build an airport in the Thames estuary, put high-speed rail links, just get on with it, because by the time we build a third runway at Heathrow, if ever we do, we're going to need a fourth one.
Yeah.
We are. And then we're going to talk about that for another 100 years. Just build a new airport, or just get the bulldozers in next week. Start bulldozing homes in Sipson, in Harmondsworth, in all of those places around Heathrow. Just flatten them now. Just get those bulldozers out now. I'm sorry, but we have been talking about this runway since 1948. I would guess that pretty much everyone that lives in those villages moved there after 1948. So if you moved near Heathrow and didn't expect that Heathrow might expand at some time, you are a moron.
Yeah, you're part of the problem.
You're part of the problem. You are.
I love how also she seems to have declared war on the newts. That's the thing, because normally all it takes is just like some small animal. The reason Boris Island didn't go ahead is the birds or something, wasn't it? I mean, they.
Well, I thought Boris was quite fond of the birds.
No wonder he wanted his own island. It's just him and the birds. But there was a story about how Rachel Reeves was declaring war on the bats, and I realised "Stop the Bats" is only one letter away from completing a manifesto pledge, which might be as close as we get with this government. So I'll take it.
So she did. She was like that massive opposition to the expansion of Leeds Bradford Airport near her constituency, and then she gave an answer on BBC News the other day where they said, well, hang on, why are you in favour of this one when you're not in favour of the other? And it was an answer out of the thick of it. She was like, oh, well, the planes are much greener now. They're really sustainable. We have great sustainable fuel, really.
Yeah.
Is it? Well, jet fuel is environmentally friendly now.
But they did change the jet fuel to make it slightly more efficient. And I remember that story came out, and it's slightly more expensive as well. So all the airlines were going, this is going to ruin flight, will never be. Like, no, you are either a tech person or not, aren't you? When it comes to solving eco problems, I'm a tech person. I'm like Elon in that way. And I'm not like Elon in all I'm not going to do all those salutes, don't worry. But he is a tech person. He thinks the solution to tech problems, to eco problems, will be technological. And this is what we've got. We've got a fuel that is getting better efficiency out of the amount of carbon it puts out. And they managed to moan about that as well. So it is true. We do have better fuel. And also, like, things are getting more efficient anyway. Technology makes things more efficient. So there will be carbon savings. Like, I don't think you just have to presume an airport will ruin things. I think things are getting better. Plus, also in Heathrow, it's near the ULEZ zone, so that saved all that carbon.
Which is so ridiculous. Don't even start me on the ULEZ. That's like a trigger word for me. But don't even start me on that repellent mayor that we have. The problem is they're all repellent. Conservatives, Labour, Reform. I just can't. There are so few of them that I actually like at the moment. It is an absolute nightmare. Okay, let's just finally. You're a comedian, though. I always tell you that I keep writing stand-up comedy routines, and I'm never going to do it. Am I, Steve?
You've got to get out there. All you've got to do is do it. I think everyone should be forced to do stand-up if, like, in sixth form, because
Where can I do it?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know. It is slightly harder to start. When I started, you could just go along to open mic nights and get on, do 5 minutes, and that's what I did. I worked in travel news before I did like proper radio-y stuff, and I worked in Centrepoint, and across the road every Tuesday there was an open mic night. Every Tuesday I went on, and I was terrible. But you've got to put the hours in. Whereas now I think it is tricky.
Can't you take me somewhere?
I don't know any of those gigs anymore, though. I could.
And comedians don't like helping other comedians as well. I have worked that out. Comedians are all not particularly you, though you are giving an excuse at the moment. But no, but comedians are notoriously unhelpful towards other comedians and don't like any other comedians.
Yeah,
right?
Of course. Well, competition. We're in the gig economy. The only way I pay the mortgage is by having gigs on the weekend. If someone takes,
so you sound like I'm not going to help any other comedian, because there is only what I've worked out is that I believe that you all think there's a finite amount of laughter.
Yeah, there is.
It's like carbon.
Yep.
And that you like, if you help anyone else get any laughter, you won't get any.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
I think genuinely, I think I have. That's why so many of them are also so depressed as well. Because so many comedians are. But so many comedians have like really serious mental health problems and depression, right?
Yeah. I think look, it takes a
stop agreeing. You're just like, you're right. We're all miserable. We're awful.
A weird collection of personality flaws to mean that you need the approval of other people, but you don't get that from friend-based relationships. That you have to travel to rooms full of strangers to get the approval of them. No one else really should need the approval of a room full of strangers, and yet we do. So I'm aware we're flawed, but pays the mortgage, doesn't it?
Well, apparently, there was a comedian at a Netflix event, right?
Yeah.
Which was taking the mickey out of Harry and Meghan. This is a really fun experiment. Not since Harry and Meghan has Netflix given more money to someone without a specific plan. And apparently the audience responded with laughing and a bit of sniggering and a few whoas, according to a source in the auditorium. It was comedian John Mulaney was the person that did this, saying it to Netflix. Is there anything ever off limits in comedy, do you think? Do you think that it's ever wrong to take the mickey out of the bosses of a streaming channel in front of them?
No. I mean, my belief is there's nothing that's off limits. If the joke is good enough, then the joke is good enough. And people who get triggered by the topic, you can't joke about that. You definitely can joke about that. Right? That's true. It's just that some people get upset and we shouldn't let them rule our lives. However, even if I was wrong about that, even if some topics are off limit, that one's not. I'm going to joke about someone who's absolutely fleeced money out of Netflix. Of course, yes, it's in front of them.
Have they fleeced money out of Netflix?
Well, they've made nothing. They've made... Well, there's... No, I go too soon on that, don't I? Because Meghan's got a new TV show where she is pursuing joy. I think that was a phrase that was used in the press. I'm presuming she means the emotion and not the woman. Otherwise, I'd watch that. If it were like a 6-parter where she's trying to hunt down some woman, maybe I'd tune in. But no, they've not made any good content at all. And they've taken millions for it, which actually... on a slightly serious note, it's really annoying to those of us who try and write content. Meanwhile, you get someone who cashes in some celebrity status to make nothing. What a waste. But it is funny because it's there.
Okay, well then experiment. Then if nothing is off limits, and I'm just going by the Joan Rivers logic here, right? And I'll explain why Joan Rivers, I mentioned her in a moment. Would you have taken the mickey then out of the plane crash that just took place?
I think we managed to do some... We just talked about it then, and we did some jokes about it. Now, we didn't joke... Look, we didn't joke about anyone who died in the crash because we didn't have jokes about it, and maybe that would be too soon. But we managed to talk about... Look, Boxing Helena got a reference, and there's an old film. No one thinks about that stuff. So
and dwarfs at the controls and things like that. Yeah, I suppose you are right, because it depends on who the victim of the joke is. I'm only saying that because... Joan Rivers, whom I absolutely adore, and I think is one of the late Joan Rivers, one of the funniest people ever. She was in comedy clubs in New York the night of September 11th, 2001, taking the mickey out of whom she would have liked to have put in the two towers, out of politicians that were around. And, there have been examples like that where, but you're right, again, that's not the victims, I suppose, But is it tasteful? Is it distasteful to just take the mickey out of anything?
It's hard to say tasteful because, again, it's all to do with how nice the audience thinks you are. You can get away with a lot if you have that rapport with an audience. So with her status and her stagecraft, you could probably get that audience to realize they trust you to go into that slightly dark area. And as long as you never really appall, as long as you say, you're punching up rather than down and all those kind of things, you can make that material work. And yet, if it doesn't work, it's not necessarily saying that topic is off for everyone. It's that you didn't land that joke.
What about then someone like Ricky Gervais? Because he has had some stick for taking the mickey out of what people perceive to be trans people. And some people would say, well, look, that's punching down, isn't it? What do you think of that?
Well, again, it's not as if no one laughed. And I'm such a purist about jokes.
So if it's funny, if people laugh, then that's it.
Well, it's certainly funny. You see so much arguments online, like, "Oh, that's not funny." I don't even say that. What a stupid sentence. It's so subjective. You might not think it's funny, and that's how you should say it. I don't think that's funny, and then the world will tell you, "Oh, we don't care whether you think it's funny or not." That's not how the economy of laughter works. And so, as long as people are laughing, it's a good joke. And if people aren't laughing, you don't repeat the joke. Simple as that.
Well, I think that one of the problems nowadays is that people confuse subject and intent.
Yeah,
those are the two things, and they think that the subject should be off limits without the nuance of looking at who the intended victim of the joke is. So one of Ricky Gervais's funniest jokes, I think, is about the fact that he's talking about if someone was raped by a trans person, a trans woman, someone who considers themselves a woman who still has male body parts, if they were to rape someone, oh my God, he raped her. No, God, you're right. She raped her. Yeah. And everyone went up in arms, said, this is absolutely terrible. Why are you taking the mickey out of trans people? But to me, he's not taking the mickey out of trans people. He's taking the mickey out of people who think that pronouns are more important when someone is talking about something like a rape.
Yeah.
And that actually there are times to perhaps point out someone's pronouns, but there are times not to. And when you're talking to someone who's just been raped, that would not be the time to do that. Yeah. That is whom he's taking the mickey out.
Yeah, he's highlighting incongruity, which is a lot of comedy. A lot of observational comedy is doing that. It's going, take another look at this. This doesn't quite make sense.
Yeah. And that this is how you deal with this problem or this situation, and this is not how some people deal with it, and that's why it's funny. Thank you for the comedy lesson.
Yeah, can I just say, and it's nowhere near as funny as Ricky's stuff, but I did a tweet when the Spare book came out, so Prince Harry, his book and stuff, and there was a story where he had an altercation with Prince William, and in the bit it says that he broke my necklace, and I just did a tweet saying that story got a lot less dramatic in that last syllable. Because obviously you don't have less than, you broke my neck. It's a bigger story. And someone replied to it saying, you can't joke about this. It's totally off limits. What?
Why is it off limits?
Yeah, I don't get what. And we got into a bit of a Twitter argument, and it's just Harry and Meghan have been through so much that you can't joke about that. And this is from someone in America. And my response was like, no, you can't joke about it. This is our monarchy. I've paid for this guy through my taxes. I get to do some jokes about a stupid book that he's written. But you're right. There are some people who just, if they have a feeling about a topic, no one in their world is ever allowed to joke about it. We can't let those people win.
My favourite part of that as well is that because there was so little that Harry could be annoyed about, he had to eke out every story. So he broke my necklace, and then I fell onto the dog bowl, and it left a mark in my back. And the dog bowl was involved. I mean, even the dog bowl was against him. You know what I mean?
And a necklace as well. Like, he's in a family that definitely has better jewellery than that. Of all the families to moan about necklaces, you're royal, mate. Come on.
I happened to be wearing my grandmother's coronation crown, and I dropped it, and the ruby fell out of it. I'm furious. You're right. There is better jewellery out there. Listen, on that note, I know you now have to go into parenting hell now, don't you? Because your life is now basically, what is your life? Nappies, children?
Yeah, a lot of, I've got a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. My nights are full of crying. At some point, I'll stop. But until then, this is just how we get through it.
Yeah, crying, sobbing, like sleepless nights, and that sounds a lot like my bedroom actually as well.
Yeah. How many nappies do you get through? Don't answer that.
You have no idea. Anyway, so Steve, and where can people find you?
Social media at Mr. Stephen Allen is my username, whether you're on X or whether you're one of these newfangled Blue Sky or Threads.
Yeah.
I'm even, if you want to be like that, on Truth Social, because I thought I'd get the username just in case. It's the world we live in now. You might as well.
And really looking forward to the comedy show you and I are going to be doing together going forward. You know, it's going to be great, right?
Taking food out of my kids' mouths. Honestly, I don't know how you dare.
Because there's only so much laughter. There's only so much laughter. Thank you, Steve N. Allen. The N is very important. Very, very important. Go back to the start if you want to know why. Please like and subscribe. Please comment below as well. But do like it. Do subscribe. I like it when you subscribe. I like it when you share it with other people. I like it when you talk to other people. Steve is going to share it as well and do some comments as well. And I'll try to reply to some this week. And we'll be back again with another Cristo putting the world right. Bye-bye.
Right here.